Okay, so today I went into the office, looked at a bunch of spreadsheets, spoke with the manager about me trying to get into more sort of shadowing, getting to shadow more of roles that are or things that typically managers tend to do more, and I think that'll just help with getting a better understanding of the whole process of like the services that we provide. So yeah, looking forward to that, and that would be for an organization that personally is like I have come into contact with before when I was younger, and I'm quite keen to work with them and for them and see what they do and get to know that their company better or their organization better. Yeah, that was the office. A lot of spreadsheets for this greenhouse gas emissions assurance. Uh, it, it it is dull in one way because they are just spreadsheets, but then it is interesting because I'm looking at sort of how the real world is in terms of put this down how the real world is in terms of recording information and data, and how messy it can be and how tedious it can be, and sort of makes you think, why isn't there just why aren't there elegant solutions for these things? Because they should be simple. It should be insanely simple. It should just be one database table essentially when you're recording these things, but no, they're just crazily manual spreadsheets. It honestly makes me want to just build a database and just a bit of software that plugs into it and sell that. But anyway, after work today at 5:30, well no, about 5:50, ended up going to get pancakes with another grad and a manager who's sort of kept telling me like we should get pancakes sometime. I know this really good pancake place. So in fairness, they were good, and he bought them for us, so that's very nice of him. And they're quite expensive as well. They're like £7 for 2 pancakes, which is quite a bit, but they were good Japanese fluffy pancakes. And now, so I woke up relatively early today, 7 o'clock, did my Kenken and my Wordle, and I started just looking at videos and reading articles about microphones, and that's because I sort of went to sleep last night, sort of reading and listening to microphones, and it's actually a fascinating world of just there's so many variables involved. So you've got different types of microphones, sort of different kinds of microphones. You've got different price ranges within those different types of microphones, and you've got different character analyses within each of those microphones. You've got sort of different benefits here and there, and how the company sells you the microphone and what sort of accessories they come with, which end up mattering quite a bit. So for example, I was listening to this guy who was explaining how the Neumann TLM 102 doesn't come with a shock mount when you buy it. It's a $700 microphone, doesn't come with a shock mount, and because it's a really good microphone in itself, it's very sensitive, it ends up just picking up your feet rubbing on the floor, or a heater, a boiler or something, like 2 floors down, he said. And you have to basically get a shock mount, but the shock mount costs an extra $100, and that no, not actually, it's an extra $300 or something, which really makes the microphone a $1,000 microphone. And if you're looking at that price range, then you might as well start looking at the TLM 102, 103, which is about, I think, $1,100. No, sorry, 103 is double the price, isn't it? It's at $1,300, I think, but that will come with a shock mount. So okay, that is still quite a big difference, but yeah, it's complicated. I was quite enchanted, to be honest, by the 102, and I was sort of doing a lot of comparisons and listening tests with the 103 and another Neumann called the U87. And if I had to be completely honest, I sort of like the brighter sound of the 102 compared to the 103 and U87. And feel like with my lower voice, it would be nice when I'm sort of singing and making vocals to get more of a higher presence. At the moment, what I do is I use a program, a plugin, which is able to add harmonics to a vocal by in the mid range and the high range. By I think what it does is it sort of takes samples from the audio in certain frequencies that are active, and then basically it pitches those up, and then makes them harmonic like, and adds them. I think that's how it works. But it makes it. I think especially with my SM58, which is a dynamic microphone, and so yeah, the SM58 is actually quite bright, but it's not clear, it's not sensitive. So even though it's got a lot of the bright, it very much has like almost a U shape in its frequency curve. So there definitely is high presence. It's not a clear high presence. It's sort of just, it feels very noisy. Like if it feels like it's a highly compressed high presence. And so when I try to fix that by adding this, what I'll often do is kind of funny. I'll say, because it's got a high presence, I'll EQ that out, EQ the top out a bit, and then add back the high presence with this program I have, and that kind of works not too badly. But obviously, it doesn't really do the job. I'm looking for something that can cut through the mix clean. That cuts through the mix, but it cuts through so dirty, it's so noisy still. So yeah, I am quite keen to get hands on these, and it's just so difficult working out what's best. And also, I am actually now very worried. I think my room is probably too loud for a condenser microphone, and I think I will have to try to rent one out and for a weekend or something and try it out, just because it is so. Trains, you've got cars, you've got people, and although I've got double glazing, all those sounds can actually just go through the walls, and those are caught. Like, you probably won't notice them as a human listener, but those are caught by sensitive microphones. But I'm currently looking at the Lewitt LCT 440. That's looking quite attractive. It's so TLM 102, about $700, probably about £550. That is quite expensive. It's quite expensive for a mic. I might, for one, not really use. I don't know if I'm going to keep making music. I hope so. I quite like it, but I don't know. And two, I think it might actually be very poorly chosen for my room. The Lewitt LCT 440, that's, I think it's about £200, 250 maybe, between 200 and 250, I think. And it sounds smart. It is quite a bright mic, but I think that would be good, as I've explained. And I like the sound. It sounds quite good, especially for the price point. It's very impressive. And I sort of listen to these different people, and they are often very surprised by how good it is. So yeah, I think I might try to rent one if I can for a weekend and experiment with it and see how that goes. I have heard that the shock mount isn't the best. It's quite a heavy, dull shock mount, so it can pick up probably rumbles and stuff from you moving around in your room. But that's about the only downside that I've heard. So yeah, I'm going to keep looking. This stuff is so interesting. It's so interesting to learn about just microphones. You know, to the layman, like to me, 2 days ago, I still didn't know what. Like I'd heard of, you know, someone telling you this is a dynamic microphone, that's a condenser microphone. I still haven't really worked out what tube and ribbon microphones are. Those can be put away for now. I think generally the tube microphone is quite expensive. So I did a quick Google search of what the most expensive microphones are. I think the most expensive one that I found was for about $10,000. The Browner VM1 something like that. Yeah, and that was a tube. And then you got a bunch of Telefunkens, and those are all tubes. And those were like $8,000. So I don't think I have to worry about tube microphones just yet. I'm quite keen to try out a condenser microphone because I have had this dynamic microphone for a while, and I've constantly been disappointed with it. Like I've never had vocals which I've been satisfied which can clearly cut through a loud mix. It always just gets drowned out, whatever I do. Or it just gets so noisy in the high end if I try to do fancy stuff with it. So, yeah. It's hard to explain these things, but I'm watching this guy's comparison video right now. Lewitt LCT 440 against a few models, and he showed the AKG AKG 240. AKG, something like that. Why do they come up with such complicated names? I think the Lewitt LCT 440 is named that way because it's made by people who designed the AKG 414 or something, and they branched off to do their own thing with Lewitt. So that's why they called theirs 440. But then why was it called 414 in the first place? What is it with these U87s and U89s, and then the 102s and 103s? And then what's it with the SM58, 57? Why are there so many names? There are so many numbers and names. Just call them, you know, Apple got it right. iPhone 1. They got a bit complicated when they started calling things the iPhone 3G and the iPhone 4S. And now they are a bit too, I don't really know what's going on with iPhones anymore. I don't have an iPhone. Use iPhones, but or even Samsung. So I've got the S10e. I guess that's simple enough, but why is it called the S10e? All it is just a slightly smaller version of the S10. So anyway, I'm gonna keep going back to these. I should also mention. I realized I made a mistake with some of my investments yesterday, with some of my strategies, and I thought I'd fix them once I got home, but I only got home at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something, and yeah, it was around 8:30, and bought dinner and got back and told myself I'll sort this out, you know, but just before market closes, thinking market closed at 4:30 New York time, but no, it closes at 4 p.m. New York time, so shot myself in the foot there to make those changes, but I'll try to do this tomorrow. Yeah.